Welcome into your sports tonight. I am Bailey Burmaster to get your week started off right. We have a lot to cover. We're going to start with Georgia. Let's get to a time that might interest people. Obviously, this week is the rivalry with Florida and Jacksonville, but we now have a game time for the Ole Miss game, and that will be a kickoff of 3:30. Georgia will make that trip to Ole Miss on November 9th. Following this game with Florida, the two programs matched up against one another last season in Athens as the Bulldogs beat the Rebels 52-17. Ole Miss is a strong team. Lane Kiffin has his Rebels moving and grooving, but they have dropped a few games, and something worth noting. But we wanted to get you that game time as it was a flex game, and it ended up being an afternoon. But Georgia coming off a much-needed bye after that Texas victory, a big win. They want to keep that momentum going. This week they'll have the Florida Gators, who have struggled and have not kept it within 21 points over the last 3 years with Georgia. Georgia owns them. This senior class could actually be undefeated against the Florida Gators. We did get an injury update, so let's talk about a few of those things. When Kirby met with media, we will hear from Kirby here in a second, but let's look at some of those injury reports. Miles Munden, hoping to get him back, and hopefully he'll be back soon. That was on the 21st. Branson Robinson has an MCL. The Tate Ratledge update was that we are hopeful. We think he's going to be able to give us something. He worked some last week and took some reps. Hopefully he's ready to go. And that was something that Kirby said today. So he could play against Florida. That would be nice. For Michael, he's still not full, and ready to go. People look at the output and think that's the case, but I don't know where he is in terms of 100% healthy. It seems like he might be coming in on some of those games that are big games for the Bulldogs as they look for those playoff hopes. But let's hear from Kirby Smart, what he had to say today in Athens ahead of this one in Jacksonville with Florida.
We got a little work in last week on Thursday on Florida. I think they're playing their best football. I think they have a really, really good roster. A lot of players we've recruited and recruited against them. But they're playing their best football, and obviously a talented group, really a lot of great size across the front on the offensive and defensive lines. I think Billy knows that's where the key is in the SEC in terms of length and size. They play a lot of players on defense. They've had a lot of guys play up front. But their three losses have come to three teams that are ranked in the top 10. At least I think they are. I don't even know. But they're really good teams, and they played those teams well. So a lot of respect for Billy. He and I have worked together before. I think he's building a really good program down there, and he is a tremendous football coach. And he does not leave any box unchecked, I can assure you of that, and know a lot of their staff. So should be a great game in Jacksonville. It looks like it's going to be great weather. It's always a really tough, hard-fought game. I think it'll be one of the most physical games we play all year.
Yeah, Coach, have you seen Florida's offense evolve at all with Lagway now as the starting quarterback and full-time guy? And where have you seen him grow throughout the year as a true freshman?
First off, he's a tremendous talent. His arm talent and arm strength itself is elite. He has great size. He can make all the throws. He's got a couple, really wow throws. I think for his age and experience, he's ahead of his time in terms of his pocket movement management. A lot of freshmen abort the pocket and run out of it. He does a good job stepping up through it, and he's made several plays where he trusted the pocket and steps up and makes really good throws. Threw the deep ball really well. Obviously, last game against Kentucky. It's not so much the change. Obviously, he has a running ability, but Graham was a good athlete too. So it's not a huge change between the two in terms of what they ask him to do. I think he's capable of making explosives, and they got the extra element in the quarterback run when they need it. They don't do it a ton, but when they need it, he can do it, and he's large. I mean, he's big. He's hard to tackle.
Hey, Coach, over here. Have y'all heard any word back from the SEC regarding any appeal as far as Dan Jackson and Jonell Guerra go for the first half of the game?
Yeah, I'm not really focused on that today. I mean, I'm not really worried about it. I mean, it is what it is right now. Our guys are trying to get ready for Florida, and we're going to prepare to play Florida.
Yeah, Kirby, Jaden Ball, freshman running back for Florida, had a really impressive game against Kentucky. What did you sort of see from him in that game and what he brings to the table?
Yeah, I've known Jaden a long time. He's a tremendous talent, a great athlete. Saw him his ninth grade year here in our 7-on-7 camp, and what a great athlete he was then. He was playing safety and knew he would grow into something. He was a big kid then, but he's gotten so much better. He's explosive. He's twitchy. Hard to tackle. I mean, runs physical. And he's had a great year. But he had a great game against Kentucky with the opportunities he got.
Coach, obviously Carson going back home again is his last time down there. I find myself answering a lot that people say, "What's wrong with Carson back?" How do you answer that question going into this week, if anything?
Yeah, I don't answer it because I don't think anything's wrong with him. I mean, he hasn't played perfect, but nobody does. So I'm very comfortable with where Carson is, and in terms of his leadership, his practice habits, the things we're asking him to do, I think he's doing a good job of those.
I was going to ask about Carson also. He had said after the Texas game that he has to play better. What areas do you guys want to see improvement from him?
Well, I think he's going to own that regardless. You know, if you ask a kid that, they're going to say that. He does need to play better. We need to coach better. We need to execute better. We need the people around him to play better. But that's the ownership that a quarterback takes. And I wouldn't expect him to answer any questions like that any other way.
Coach, looking at Florida, you said they're playing their best ball right now. Where have you seen their biggest growth since early in the season?
Well, I think they're executing at a higher level. They're making explosives, which those number one indicators to win and loss. Turning it over a little less. They've been, they played a really clean game against Tennessee at Tennessee, which we all know is a really hard place to play. And they've got more and more guys. I mean, some of their portal guys have stepped up and made more plays. So, very impressed with how they're playing more confidence to me on defense and really flying around.
Yeah, Kirby, this senior class could be the first group since the 80s to go 4-0 against Florida with a win on Saturday. Just as a guy who's familiar with this rivalry, what is the significance of that, and do you think that's any, extra motivating factor for those guys going into Saturday?
No, I think it has no bearing on Saturday. I mean, each season is independent of the previous. We don't get caught up in things like that. We're trying to earn it each day.
Kirby, what was the rivalry in the Smart household growing up, and did that change for you as a player and as a head coach?
I don't understand what you mean. The rivalry in the Smart household, the one I grew up in or the one I'm in now?
The one you grew up in. Your dad, was he?
Yeah, it was Bainbridge Cairo. I mean, I didn't know anything about college games. I didn't know they existed. Not until I was about a 10th grader did I worry about college. I was worried about making sure we had food on the table and we won the games we were supposed to win at the high school level.
And then now that you're here, in terms of all the great rivalries you have, where does this one kind of stack up?
They're all dead even. They're all at the very top.
Coach, of course, a big story in this. I know it's a big story about it, but Trevor's going back to face his former team. What has historically kind of been your message to guys that you've coached when going against their former team? How do you want them to kind of keep their head in games like this?
Yeah, focus on the task. It's not a chance. You don't want to get caught up in emotions and be emotional. I don't think that helps any. Dom's gone through it with Missouri a couple times, and different players. That's part of college football now. We've had kids go down there, so we don't get caught up in it much. I mean, at the end of the day, what's going to make you play well? It ain't worrying about that.
How close is Tay Rowledge to being able to play for you guys this week?
We're hopeful. I mean, we think he's going to be able to give us something. He worked some last week, took some reps, did rehab over the weekend. Hopefully he's rip raring to go. I mean, I know he wants to play in this game. It's really important to him.
Yeah, with Trevor, what has sort of allowed him to make sort of the transition where he's able to help you guys and play such a key role for you guys on offense right away in his first season after transferring in?
Well, he's talented, he's intelligent. He's a level-headed kid. He's a good leader. He's a great kid. So, I mean, I think those qualities help anybody play, but he's older than a freshman. He came into a system that's, not that far off from the one he was in terms of offense. It may be different words, but a lot of the same plays. So I think he transitioned well.
Kirby, The data shows that there's been a lot more close games in conference play this year than in past years. Is there anything that jumps out to you as reason why? Is it an NIL portal effect? Our defense is getting better at stopping offenses, or what?
Yeah, I don't have a great explanation for that. I think there's more talent in our league than ever before in terms of accumulation of talent, whether it's from lower divisions, other teams. I mean, every team we play, they give me a sheet of the portals, and it seems to be more and more players from other conferences or even our conference that left and went to a team within our conference that we play, and the teams are better. I mean, it's just, and I don't know that teams have as much depth. I know we don't. We don't have as much depth as we've had in the past, so that depth is shared out, which may create some more parity there. I don't know the exact reason for it. There is definitely not a large margin of separation, top to bottom, in our league. Probably the least it's ever been since I've been in it.
Kirby, what do you feel like you guys got accomplished during this bye week?
Yeah, I think we got to look at ourselves. I think we got a lot of work for our younger players. I think we did a lot of targeted drill work, targeted things that we needed to work on specifically, offensively and defensively, situational football that we really hadn't got to do in the past couple of weeks because it's been so fast.
Coach, you had Coach Rickton here a few weeks ago. You were at his event last week. How would you describe your relationship, how it's grown over these past few years?
Yeah, I initially got to know Coach Rick when he hired me, and worked a year on his staff, and have known him for a long time. He and Catherine and their family, and son John, who is a quarterback coach and does a great job over at Prince. So they have a tremendous family. He's a tremendous man. The support he's shown for this community and what he's done for so many others. I mean, there's so many lettermen that come back that played for him that, it's important that we embrace them because I'm a letterman. I've come back here for years, and I want those guys that played for him to feel comfortable they can come back home, and him being here helps that.
Coach, can you give us your thoughts on the development of Sam Mpemba, Damon Wilson, and Gabe Harris? They came in with a lot of fanfare. We're starting to see their names called more and more. Can you give us your thoughts?
Yeah, all three of those guys are they're similar in the fact they play the same position. They're different in their makeup and their kind of their strengths. Each one has gotten better. I think Shadero's done a great job developing those guys. We've seen Damon increase his role this year from last year, and he's continuing to get better. And Gabe has given us a solid guy in some positions that we've struggled in. We've had some injuries at the position that Gabe's been asked to play, and Sam's continuing to develop. He probably had the furthest to go from a standpoint of he'd been an offensive player some of his high school career and was really just starting to play more and more on defense. But I'm pleased with all three of those guys.
Coach, two-part for you. One, you mentioned the Mississippi State game warm-ups, I think, and you've said before the pregame at the neutral site isn't quite the same as a home field. One, is there anything you change up or anything you can do to get a better pregame? And two, if you could address just Michael Williams and the impact and what he's allowed you to do with him back in the lineup more full strength.
Well, Michael's still not full. I mean, he wasn't last week in terms of full strength and all the way back. I want to be clear on that. I mean, I think people look at the output against Texas and think he didn't play a lot of snaps, and he didn't play probably the 100% role that he was playing against Clemson. We think he's going to be much better this week. We did a lot of rehab with him last week, but I don't know where he is. What does he allow us to do? He gives us depth. He makes everybody else better around him. He's certainly a hard player to block, and he plays the run and pass well. So I'm happy to have him back. I just hope he is 100%. I don't understand the other question. You said something about Mississippi State.
Well, you mentioned the pregame when you watch your players in the pregame. Maybe it was Auburn. Maybe I misspoke. But one of those pregames you weren't pleased with the intensity level, and you said before that in this stadium with the 50-50, you don't sense the same intensity in the warm-ups that you maybe get at a home game.
Yeah, it's different. It's a different vibe. It's no relation to home or away. It's just a different, it's a different vibe because it's a different fan base a little bit. I mean, it's not a home field for anybody. It's more of an NFL type feel to it because a lot of people don't come in until kickoff. But that's just more about managing it. It's not a complaint. I mean, it's just a fact.
Kirby, you had a lot of national kind of spotlight games. Is it hard when you have a schedule like you do to keep your team, peak performance week after week, when the schedule rolls around?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that we have peaked. I hope we haven't. I think you're constantly trying to get better, and that's our pursuit of the best version of ourselves. And we haven't reached that with this team. We haven't reached our best. We're trying to get better and ascend in every area and grow and create more depth. We've got opportunities to do that this week and weeks coming forward. But
we will keep you posted on that, as we will have crews in Jacksonville for that matchup. Something else that went down on Monday morning was the Atlanta Braves introduced their new hitting coach, Tim Hires, who is a Georgia native. He is from the area. Most of his family is in this area. So when the position came up with the Braves and they approached him, it really seemed like a full circle moment for him. We got to talk to him. It wasn't a very in-depth Zoom, but you definitely got to see a peek into how he coaches, how he views things when it comes to the hitting position. And something that really I thought stuck out was in talking about how his core principles within his coaching and what he feels helps him be successful, but also his players, and that was game planning, swing decisions, and a movement within the batter's box. Very insightful, very good, calm demeanor. He obviously spent time with the Rangers and in Boston as well, so he has a good pedigree. Let's hear from his Zoom and what he had to say earlier today.
People talk about hitting coaches. Philosophy is a very broad term, but how would you distill that for you and what you see as a successful approach for a major league team?
Yeah, I'm a simple guy. I like to keep things simple so that players can understand. We can have a confident approach. Yeah, I believe in some core principles, and three that I'm going to preach, day in and day out, is game planning, swing decisions, and our movements in the batter's box. Game planning, we have so much information these days, which is great. I love information. But I think that's the art of coaching this day and age, is funneling that information so we have that one, idea, that one thought that we can go compete in the batter's box. And I think a lot of hitters, they can only think about one thing at a time and hit 97 miles an hour. So game planning is big for me, is taking the information, what's the most important part, and let's go battle. Two is swing decisions. I mean, you're only as good as the strikes you swing at. I mean, it's basic. And I think you can break that down into two groups: is chase percentage, kind of like, can we eliminate some chase? And what can we swing at? What are we swinging at for our strengths, in parts of the zone? And there's some, I think there's some ways we can identify that to get players swinging at their pitches. And then, lastly, is their movement pattern, is the mechanics. Just watching some video, kind of doing some studying here. I think that, some of the injuries cause some players to, get out of their swing. And I think the mental affects the physical. And when guys want to do more because they, some key players got hurt. And I think, we can clean up some of those patterns and get them back into their groove and not trying to do too much, have those thoughts where I need to get a hit or I need to hit a homer here. And I think that messes up the physical, and just kind of get some guys back in the groove and that way. But I'm going to stick to those three, principles day in and day out, and kind of, can examine and, critique, in that area. I think those are the fundamentals. But in the big picture of the offense, if you dominate those things, I also think that helps your team be prepared, be disciplined, and also be fluid. Because the fluid part of this is important, because you have to be able to score runs in multiple different ways. And there's days that we can slug, and obviously this team can slug and hits the ball really hard. I'm excited to be a part of that. But also there's days when you got to score runs in different ways. And how quick can we be fluid into identifying that and do that as a group, and to be consistent with it.
Tim, at what point in time did you get a sense that even coming home was a possibility? And I mean, obviously this is something you've wanted for a long time. Was it pretty quick after Sites was removed, you realized this was a possibility?
Yeah, I mean, it totally caught me off guard, really. I mean, I was happy in Texas. Texas treated me great. I mean, every place I've been, but we had some special times there, some great friends, and the group is awesome. CY has built a great organization. And it just came out of nowhere, really. I didn't, just the CY calls me up and says, "Hey, the Braves want to interview you," and it was just like one thing after the other. It moved pretty quick. Just kind of went through the interview process, and was excited. I told CY, yes, it is home. I needed for the for the family. They've chased me around baseball for many, many years, and I wanted to hear what the Braves had to say and see if it was a fit. I mean, I think that's a bigger part is like, was it a fit? And, could I help out? And after talking to Alex and the front office and obviously Brian, and I felt at ease. I love their vision. I love, the things that they had to say about, building an organization, building an offense and moving forward and winning championships. And so, yes, it moved pretty quick, and I'm glad to be home. And I know it's not a big deal to other people, but to me, it's to my family, it's kind of it's rewarding to to work closer to home.
Tim, can it be the most frustrating thing about a hitting coach's job in that you recognize and the hitters recognize some in many cases that they're pressing, some guys are hurt, they're trying to do too much, and it's like everybody knows that's happening. Last year with the Braves that happened, and Sites said, I just hope, the next guy can find a way to get through to the guys and help them when they are pressing, because he last year was just one of those seasons where he wasn't able to get guys to stop doing that. I mean, you've seen it, I'm sure, too, with Texas had a similar case where they went from what second or third in OPS plus the previous year to 20th last year, just like the Braves did. Combination of injuries and pressing and all that.
Absolutely. It's the players are kind of perfectionists. They want to do so well because they want to do it for the fan base. They want to do it for themselves and their teammates. And so when they you have these obstacles in the way of, like, Texas, obviously some injuries, and then the Braves with injuries, that mental can play a big part in it. And so, yes, that's part of my job to, help them see it in a different way, identify some things that can help them, relax at the plate, just do a little bit less to help the team out, change the narrative. But, the big part is creating a culture that in an environment so they come together and not trying to, put that pressure on themselves and be individual hitters, but more of like, this is a team approach. And this is 9-on-1. I do my part, pass the baton, move on, and let's find ways to score runs and win tonight. And tomorrow will take care of itself, but let's be a good team today. And I feel that's a part of my job.
Tim, you mentioned Alex and Snit kind of walking you through the vision of what they wanted the offense to be. Obviously, we know what the culture is. What sorts of things stuck out to you about kind of how they wanted to build this offense and maybe how they wanted it to be different, even though it's been good the last few years?
Yeah, it's been great. It's I just think they were just sticking to the fundamentals of what basic, complete offenses do. And it wasn't something that was overcomplicated. We have some talent. They know the talent's here. It's how do you get the talent to gel? How do you get the guys to continue to play together and and to focus day in and day out. I just love the simple approach. I know Alex has got a big scouting background. His job, he talked about, hey, Tim, I'm getting good players on the field, keeping them healthy. And then I hand it over to you guys and do your thing. And he was just talking about Snit being, letting you do your job. But just the basics of baseball, like I talked about, I was like, I'm a simple guy. We have to have simple messages. And I like the one part where can't remember who was talking about it, but taking a lot of information, taking the wide to narrow, and just day in and day out, just doing those simple things that win games, and not trying to make it more, because when we have talent, so letting that talent show itself on the field and not get in the way of it.
What do you hear about Snit, and what have you observed? Because you've had a chance to play and coach, especially coach under a lot of guys that are who are acknowledged or recognized as kind of ultimate players, managers. Is Snit like that? Is that an attractive part of going to work for a guy like this?
Oh, yes, because just around the league, you hear players talk or whatever. He's got your back as a player, and I think that means a lot. He understands how hard the game is to play. He understands the obstacles, and he's there for you. And so I think that goes a long ways in helping produce a winning offense is when your manager is fully on board and has your back.
And when you got, you hear people say, like last year, we would say, the Braves DNA, their offense, their lineup, two strike approach when it comes to that, or hitting the ball behind a runner or going the other way. The DNA is these guys are sluggers. When you hear that, what do you think about, that as major leaguers? I mean, is it possible to expand a player's DNA? I mean, is it somewhat of an insult to say that a player can't make those adjustments in the middle of a season?
No, that's a great question. I think I had some experience with that with the 2018 Red Sox team. That the team liked to swing the bat, but they could impact the game, and that's what I see with this group. They can impact the game with one swing and change the scoreboard in a hurry, but also identifying those other times to take it down a notch and be a complete hitter and win 90 feet to start rallies and understand how to score runs. I think there's multiple ways to do that. And I think that's where, the environment starts and then, the culture of getting those leaders together and what does it take to, to win games. Yes, it's in their DNA to mash baseballs and impact the game, but also, picking those little areas and spots, during the season, against different matchups to help them, see different ways to score runs. And I think we can do it. I think it'll be obviously a challenge. But if you go back to the core fundamentals, if we swing at better pitches and if we're the most prepared, team offensively, I think those things blend into helping them, use the whole field, identify situational hitting and grind out with two strikes and not just give at bats away.
Have you ever worked with any of these guys? Or are you familiar with them, cross paths with any of them?
No, not a lot. Just a lot of earlier days with Matt Olson. I think my son played with him like when he was 12, 13. Being in the Georgia area, so just more as an amateur and things like that. But nobody else. Well, I take that back. Eli White was in Texas.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Tim, what?
It will certainly be cool to be able to see what Hires brings to this Braves team. Obviously, injuries were a big part of slowing the momentum offensively for that team. Can't get out of here without talking a little bit about the Kennesaw State Owls. Get their first FBS victory and a huge upset win over the Liberty Flames. The Owls were actually named the Cheez-It National Team of the Week. Got that award. They also swept awards for offense, defense, and special teams for Conference USA as well. So love to see that. They were 0-6, 27-point underdogs coming into that game. Have lost all 10 of their previous encounters with FBS teams since the inception of the program since 2015. And they absolutely stun the Flames, who were undefeated at the time and held quite a regular season victory win tally there as well that they were able to snap. So love to see that for the Owls. All right, that will do it for this edition of Sports Tonight. Make sure to join us throughout the rest of the week because we will have all the latest sports headlines. Have a good night.